Well, Vlad, if you don't have an objection, we will start off our webinar.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul. Let's go ahead.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar. Today's topic is on professional development, specifically strengthening risk management capabilities of water and wastewater professionals. Now, this topic, it's important because the water sector is accelerating its use of risk management. That's good. What's also good is many agencies are assigning this responsibility to their most talented employees. But here's the challenge. Many of these employees are asking for support. They're either new to or unfamiliar with risk management. They want a roadmap. So our speakers will discuss this need, and they'll present a solution for accelerating one's understanding of risk. And the solution, it's anchored in the practical application of enterprise risk management. That's important because practical applications resonate with and are embraced by your stakeholders, internal and external. And you can't forget about your external stakeholders like insurers, rating agencies, and bond issuers, because they'll reward your organization if your enterprise risk management programs are well funded, well implemented, and well led. And by reward, I mean competitive pricing and proper capacity for your insurance policies and bond subscriptions. So that brings us to today's learning objectives, and there's three. First, we'll clarify the scope of enterprise risk management within the water sector. Second, we'll share practical risk perspectives used by risk managers.
Hi.
And third, we'll introduce a roadmap for improved risk management learning. In terms of sequence, Vlad will start the discussion by encapsulating the role of a professional risk manager and the common risks that must be managed within the water sector. Vlad will also share the critical tools that he uses as risk manager for East Bay Mud. And regarding Vlad, most of us know he's the founder of the Water Leadership Group. But what you may not know is he's also on the advisory board for the Certified Public Risk Officer designation, and he serves on the board for East Bay Mud's captive insurance company. We'll then segue to Laura Lee Metters and Carrie Vang. They'll explain the importance, and this is critical, the importance of actionable water-specific risk management and the importance of structured water-specific risk education. Dr. Metters is chair of the Banking, Finance, and Insurance Department at Appalachian State University. She leads one of the largest risk management programs in the country. And Laura Lee, she's also the co-creator and academic advisor of the CPRO designation. Carrie is a principal at Brown & Caldwell, which is a global water engineering consultancy. Prior to Brown & Caldwell, Carrie spent over a decade at San Francisco PUC, where she specialized in business strategy and performance improvement. Carrie is CPRO's executive officer, and she works closely with Laura Lee, the water sector, and the folks at Appalachian State University. We'll then introduce two CPRO graduates and ask for their assessment of the designation, as well as its impact on them and their organization. Finally, we'll end with our Q&A session. So if you can, please type your questions in the chat and we'll answer them during this portion of the webinar. And should time expire, we'll discuss any unanswered questions during next month's open forum. Okay, we've got lots to discuss. Vlad, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. I'm glad to see so many of you carving out time today. As Paul mentioned in his introduction, this presentation was designed specifically for up-and-coming risk professionals and newly appointed risk managers within public water and wastewater systems. A quick note on who is in the room. We know that more and more of you are stepping into risk management from adjacent disciplines: HR, finance, operations, even engineering. That's a healthy trend for our industry, but it also means many of you are learning the ropes on the job, often without a roadmap. That's exactly what this session is for. Okay, next slide, please. Here's our roadmap. 4 parts. Each one of them could be made into a full-fledged webinar. But for purposes of today's overview, I'll keep us moving so we finish on time. First, we'll ground ourselves in the role itself, the core responsibilities and the liability landscape unique to water and wastewater utilities. If you are new, this is the mental model you need. Second, your toolkit. There are 3 pillars every risk professional in this sector must master: contracts, insurance, and claims. We'll spend the bulk of our time here because this is where new risk managers most often feel underwater in their first year. Third, emerging risks, specifically how the profession is tackling wildfire and cybersecurity, which have moved from peripheral concern to top-of-mind exposures. And fourth, we'll zoom out to industry trends and tee up part 2, which focuses on CPRO-W certification. Let's start with the role itself. Let's start with the most basic question. What does a utility risk professional actually do? If you came from HR or finance, you may have inherited the title, a stack of insurance policies, and maybe a few claim file folders, and wondered, is this it? Well, let me tell you, it's not. Day to day, you'll be reviewing contracts and indemnification language, overseeing claims from first notice through resolution, running loss prevention initiatives, managing broker and carrier relationships, and reporting up to your general manager and the board. Strategically, you'll be setting your agency's risk appetite, feeding risk-informed data capital into planning conversations, and supporting emergency preparedness. You sit at the intersection of legal, finance, operations, IT, and HR, which means a huge part of the job is translation. You translate technical risks into business decisions that non-risk people can act on. So, with this scope in mind, let's look at what we're actually protecting. This slide is meant to be overwhelming, and that's intentional because exposure footprint of public water utility is enormous, and often it's underappreciated until something goes wrong. On the left side, your physical infrastructure. Dams and reservoirs holding millions of gallons, hundreds or thousands of miles of pipeline, treatment plants and pump stations, watershed lands that are often open to public for recreation, and all your building and contents. These are multi-billion-dollar assets, much of it built decades ago, sitting in California's seismic and wildfire zones. On the right side, the operational and emerging exposures. Your fleet, your street-level assets like meter boxes and valves that pedestrians and cyclists encounter every day, active construction projects, employee conduct and third-party interactions, and increasingly, cybersecurity and data privacy. Cyber is the newest exposure on this list, but it's escalating the fastest. Water utilities are now formally classified as critical infrastructure under federal designation, which means that both the threat level and the regulatory bar are much, much higher than they were before. Knowing this exposure footprint cold is the foundation for everything we're about to discuss. So, now that we know what we're protecting, let's talk about how. That brings us to the toolkit. The toolkit has 3 pillars. We're starting with the first and arguably most important. I also would like to point out that it's often the most overlooked and disliked one, and that's contractual risk transfer. This is your first line of defense. And it's the most cost-effective tool you have because every dollar of risk you successfully push to a contract or a vendor is a dollar that doesn't hit your insurance program or your self-insured retention. Here we have 4 points to remember. First, market intelligence. You have to know what the insurance market is doing, what coverages are getting excluded, what's getting expensive, because that shapes what you can reasonably ask vendors to carry. At East Bay Mud, we conduct periodic reviews of state of the market and our insurance templates with our insurance broker. If you are not doing it, I would highly recommend incorporating it into your periodic broker meetings. Second, and this is not what some of you may want to hear, every contract, every time. No exceptions for small jobs or trusted vendors. That's how exposures slip through. And on a side note, those small or trusted vendors or small contracts are the ones that probably will not be able to indemnify you in case things go wrong. So that's where you really need to pay attention. Tailor the indemnification and insurance requirement to the actual scope of contract and the risks associated with that contract. Third, this is a team sport. Legal, IT security, procurement are your partners, not gatekeepers. Don't punt the decision-making to them. Instead, build a consistent, transparent review process with them as your partners. And fourth, many California agencies are centralizing contract review, and in many instances, it's under risk function. If yours is heading that direction, you may be asked to lead or support that transformation. Embrace it, because it's a major value add for the agency. And I want to add another personal note here. This is often, as I mentioned, a disliked area, and some of it is due to an inherent conflict of interest because the project managers that work within your organization are interested in signing that contract and then getting that job going as quickly as possible. When you start asking questions about the exposures and start asking for specific insurance coverages and limits, they see it as you potentially getting in the way. And this is where that translation function is very important. You have to explain to your internal stakeholders the risks associated with the contract, and you have to put it in real life terms. Use examples from your career, use other resources like Google and ChatGPT to come up with what could potentially go wrong if a particular coverage or limit is not met. Okay, we're going to move on to the second one. Setting your self-insured strategy. Pillar 2 is insurance, but before we can buy insurance intelligently, we have to decide how much risk you're keeping yourself. That's your self-insurance strategy, and it's a 4-step exercise. Step number 1, assess your organization's risk appetite. This is a leadership conversation as much as a technical one. For example, what can your board tolerate? What can your budget support? What's the political sensitivity around a large uninsured loss? Step 2, analyze loss history. Pull 5 to 10 years worth of claims data and look at frequency and severity. Model expected losses against worst case scenarios. Step 3, evaluate your exposure. Inventory your high value assets, dams, treatment plants, transmission mains, and map catastrophic scenarios to actual dollars. What would a dam failure cost? A treatment plant fire? A major main break in a downtown corridor? Step 4, right size your retention. Higher retention means lower premiums, but you need to have the reserves to back it up. Benchmark against peer agencies and get an actuarial review done every few years. Again, speaking from personal experience, at East Bay Mud, we have a written policy where we have to get an actuarial review conducted every year. Self-insurance is not set and forget. You have to continuously look at the overall picture. Okay, next, please. Once you've set your retention, you need excess insurance above it. And buying smarter, not just more, is where experienced risk managers earn their keep. 4 principles here, and they all work in concert with each other. I'll demonstrate this with a specific example at the end of this slide. Number 1, stay ahead of the market. The property and liability market for utilities have been extremely volatile, and your coverage levels need to be reassessed continuously, not just at the time of the renewal. If you're doing it just at the renewal time, it's too late. You will not be able to adjust or react to what's going on in the marketplace. Number 2, build insurers' confidence. Invite your broker and underwriter on site. Let them see your treatment plans, your control rooms, your wildfire mitigation work. Transparency earns better terms every time. And speaking from personal experience, at East Bay Mud, we conduct an annual broker and underwriter tour where we tour East Bay Mud facilities, we demonstrate our operations, we have them meet our staff and talk to our staff. And let me tell you, I'm probably giving away some of our secrets, but in California, as you know, insurers are offering limited coverage because they want to minimize their exposure, given some of the complexities of our market in the state. So there's a competition for limited resources. If there are 5 public agencies competing for the same, let's say, $10 million in excess liability coverage, all things being equal, if my agency has this transparency and annual tour where we meet the underwriters and brokers, I will win every single time against the other 4 agencies. So market your program, explain to them what you're doing, demonstrate to them your program. It's very, very important. Number 3, drive the renewal process. Don't passively accept a default proposal from your broker. Request competing quotes, explore other options such as layering across multiple carriers, and negotiate terms actively. And 4, think beyond traditional markets. For example, Bermuda placement, captives, risk pools, and joint power authorities are often the single biggest value lever you have. Don't overlook them. And as I mentioned, I'll bring up a specific example that I encountered 2 years ago at East Bay Mud. We were approaching our excess liability renewal, and we could not find a carrier for a particular layer. So we had an option of either arranging a quota share with a Bermuda carrier or paying an excess of $1 million in cost of a premium for that particular layer. Because in a tower arrangement on an excess liability policy, each subsequent layer is based on the preceding layer's pricing. So an increase in one layer will cause ripple effect throughout your tower. But this would not have been possible if all of those 4 things did not happen ahead of time. We stayed ahead of the market. We built some knowledge and understanding and met the Bermuda market ahead of time. And when the time came, we were able to pivot and save a significant amount of money for my agency. So again, all 4 of those need to work in concert. Next slide, please. This gets us to the claim philosophy. Pillar 3 is claims management. And this is where your reputation, both personal and as the agency, is made or broken. The philosophy I want you to internalize is firm, fair, and fast. 5 principles here. First, balance stakeholders. Every claim involves 3 parties: your organization, the claimant, and the ratepayers who fund everything. And sometimes your ratepayer and the claimant may be the same. So you have to weigh all 3. Second, investigate thoroughly. Stay involved from the initial reporting through final resolution. Don't outsource your judgment to a TPA or a defense counsel and disappear. Those gaps are where bad outcomes happen. And again, speaking from my East Bay Mud experience, our risk management team is heavily involved in every step of the process, from the initial reporting and investigation to a site visit and inspection, and if the case gets litigated, to every single legal proceeding, mediation, depositions of key witnesses, mandatory settlement conferences, and so on. Third, be reasonable but tough. Your goal is to deter frivolous claims while treating legitimate ones with respect. Fourth, pay what we owe. When the agency caused the damage, provide fair compensation promptly. That's both ethically right and operationally cheaper than dragging it out. And fifth, fight what we don't owe. Aggressively defend defensible claims. Every dollar paid on a meritless claim is a ratepayer's dollar that did not go to infrastructure. And again, all those come together, and many times in mediation, when we're mediating a complex litigated matter, I usually can explain East Bay Mud's position and point the mediators to let the opposing counsel know that East Bay Mud is not afraid to litigate. I can point them to a specific case we litigated recently to let them know that we will fight it and we will fight it hard. So again, your reputation will precede you. And many times it's very important to make sure that your agency is not known as a pushover to pay frivolous claims or does not spend resources fighting the legitimate claims unnecessarily. So this covers the three pillars of the toolkit. Now, let's take a look at where the profession itself is heading. Beyond the day-to-day toolkit, the profession itself is evolving, and it's evolving quickly. The risk manager's role is shifting from being seen as a cost center, an insurance buyer, to a strategic function that influences how the agency operates. Two operating modes that I want to point out. First, driving change today. The most effective risk managers are pushing upstream, embedding risk requirements into procurement before contracts are signed, bringing risk-informed data into capital planning, so infrastructure investment factors in the loss exposures, and convening cross-functional groups to address recurring losses before they escalate. You're not waiting for things to break. You are preventing them. Second, championing innovation. We are seeing partnership with universities on smart pipeline and system works. And we recently had a webinar that you're welcome to view on our website regarding UC Berkeley Center for Smart Infrastructure. Again, some other examples include proactive wildfire and cyber mitigation programs and very active peer groups. There are now 30 plus California water and wastewater agencies regularly sharing best practices in this group alone. So remember, when a challenge comes, you're not alone in this. And that's a relatively new and a very powerful dynamic. Let's make that concrete with two examples of tackling emerging risks. Next slide, please. Two examples of emerging risks that will frankly dominate your your first 5 years in this role. First, wildfire mitigation. If you're in California, this is a reality, especially if your agency manages watershed lands. The mature programs looks like this: tight emergency coordination with CAL FIRE and local fire agencies, active vegetation management and fuel break programs, infrastructure hardening with backup power for pump stations and treatments, and multi-agency mutual assistance agreements. And again, I want to reference our previous webinar regarding multi-agency mutual assistance agreements. We did this back in 2025, and it was a very informative session about what those are and how to set them up. So I welcome all of you to review it if you haven't seen it. So when the disaster comes, those multi-agency mutual assistance agreements can help you to get help when you need it and offer it when an event hits your fellow agency. Second, cybersecurity. And again, we, through the Water Leadership Group, had a number of webinars, including the ones with CISA and FBI. And I welcome you to take a look at that. But the framework I want you to know today is defense in depth. Layered means multiple independent defenses: perimeter, network, endpoint, application. Redundant means overlapping controls, so continuity holds when one fails. Diverse and adaptable means varied control types that evolve as the threat landscape evolves as well. The core assumption here is any single control will eventually fail, so you have to design your systems for that. These two will demand a disproportionate share of your attention. So build the muscle now. Next slide, please. Now we'll step back and talk about why does this role matter more than ever, and why it shouldn't be an afterthought or an add-on function. 4 pressures are converging on California water and wastewater agencies right now. And first, aging infrastructure. Our assets are reaching end of life faster than the budgets can replace them. Climate change. Droughts, extreme weather, and wildfires are creating loss exposures that did not exist a generation ago. We're also seeing significant regulatory evolution. We're talking PFAS, microplastics, nutrients, ever-shifting compliance standards. And lastly, financial pressures. Conservation programs are reducing our revenues at the same time as inflation is driving our costs higher. Every one of those pressures lands somewhere on the risk manager's desk. The agencies that navigate this well will be the ones with skilled risk professionals leading the way. That's the case for investing in your own and your team's development. And it's the bridge to part 2 of our presentation today, which is all about CPRO-W certification. What it is, why it matters, and how to earn it. Now, I'd like to turn this presentation over to my wonderful co-presenters who will tell you all you need to know about CPRO-W. Lorelei?
Thank you, Vlad. We're so happy to be with you today. We are excited about the launch of the Certified Public Risk Officer Water Wastewater credential, CPRO-W². And the reason that we're most excited about this is because of the timing. The American Association of Water Distribution and Management, in agreement with Appalachian State University, where I teach, has launched the program to be the premier risk management designation for water and wastewater professionals. And when I say that, I mean it is the only risk management designation for water and wastewater professionals that is unique to water and wastewater. But I also mean that really the point of the program is to go above and beyond what some of the risk management credentials you can get elsewhere do. And it is really intended for anyone who is already taking on risk management professional responsibilities, someone who's being asked to take on risk management responsibilities for their utility, or executives who are being asked to communicate risk management and risk to stakeholders internally and externally. Thank you. So Vlad has just shared with you some of the uncertainties that the water and wastewater sector is facing. Aging infrastructure, climate impacts, increasing financial and risk financing, insurance volatility, as well as increased regulatory scrutiny. And for utilities to respond to these uncertainties appropriately, optimally, they have to shift from what has been historically a sort of defensive risk posture, a reactive defensive risk posture, into a proactive strategic risk posture in which the utility can ensure that risks and how risks are treated, what risks are chosen, and what risks are avoided are in alignment with the strategy of the organization, to ensure that the organization can optimally allocate resources, and to ensure that the organization is embodying and promoting, both internally and externally, a risk-aware culture where better decisions can be made, not just from a risk management standpoint, but from an overall strategic standpoint. So that is the point of CPRO-W². I'm going to hand it over to Carrie Ving, who is our Executive Director of the CPRO-W² program, who can talk to you a little bit more about the details of the 2 tracks and how the logistics work. Carrie?
Thank you, Lori. Great presentation. Very, very helpful. So the Certified Public Risk Officer designation for water and wastewater, as you can see here, there are 2 tracks. There's the executive track. It's geared towards the C-suite, general managers, chief financial officers, and those that would act as the executive sponsor for rolling out enterprise-wide risk management and how to interact with the board, how to interact with external stakeholders. It's really targeted around thinking about risk in a different way. The commitment is 25 hours. It's approximately 4 hours a week for 6 weeks. And the structure is a cohort style. So a small, intimate setting of executives are working through the material together. They're bringing their real world scenarios to the peer exchange discussions each week and talking about how they're managing risk now and what tools they're learning through the course and how they're going to apply that moving forward. And the best part of the executive track and the professional track, as I'll talk about in a minute, is after the executives graduate through the course, they roll into the water leadership group and they maintain those relationships that they developed in that cohort executive track. They have a built-in peer community so that they're not going about implementing risk management and enhancing their risk profile by themselves. The professional track is for those existing risk managers, the aspiring risk managers, and individuals that manage risk as part of their day-to-day responsibilities. You can think of infrastructure managers, health and safety, human resources. They may have an informal understanding of risk management, and they've probably picked up some really important tools along the way. But they want that formal grounding of what is a holistic enterprise risk management program outside of a siloed approach to just health and safety or cybersecurity. This is a 50-hour, more comprehensive course over 12 weeks, still about 4 hours a week, committed to self-directed learning with bi-weekly sessions for these peer exchange with the other risk managers. And at the end of the course, they're prepared to sit an exam and turn in assignments that they've been working on throughout the course. And what's interesting is it's not so much that the students are being evaluated on how much they learned, it's that the course is being evaluated, meaning if you put in the work, you have no problem passing the exam. If you put in the work, you're building a portfolio of valuable tools that you leave in a briefcase and you go back to your utility with. Examples such as how to write a risk register and a heat map, how to develop your utilities risk appetite and risk policy, how to think about key risk indicators, and even frameworks for evaluating insurance, contracts, and risk transfer. So the understanding is not just intellectual, it's in practice. And that's really what makes this learning stick. It's something that you can lean on, and it's something that you put into practice immediately. So what we'd like to do, I'm just going to share a couple more information on what you'll gain. So we mentioned foundational instruction. But I would really emphasize the actionable tools that we're seeing utility leaders and formal now risk managers come out with. There's a peer learning component that gives the cohort an opportunity to hear some best practices from the curriculum, but also what their peers are doing in real time. And then lastly, these practice-based assignments allow students to take the opportunity to develop and work with some of these tools while having input and feedback from Professor Metters and other members of their cohort. The structure again is in an asynchronous platform, learning platform through Appalachian State University. And there's it's combined with that cohort model of live in-person sessions. The tuition for public agencies and nonprofits is $2,500. And for private sector participants, it's $3,500. That tuition includes enrollment in Appalachian State University's course. It includes all of the learning materials, the textbook, the study guides, and practical, and as well as office hours and access to the instructors. So what we want to do now is ask Vadim Lifshitz and Stacy to come on and share a little bit about their experiences. Stacy and Vadim recently passed the Master Leadership class, which was the first cohort of the CPRO-W² designation, and they passed in December. And Stacy, if you wouldn't mind starting, just share a little bit about your experience and what you got out of the course.
Sure, I'm happy to. This designation is a great a great resource for any risk management group. It's kind of like a cornerstone piece because it's bringing together what your knowledge and your background is coming into risk management. Everybody has a different story on how they fell into risk management. And it really fills in the gaps of knowledge. And so the entire program is really comprehensive, and it has you, so I think everybody can get something out of it. And it puts everybody in a position of understanding, everybody from executives to your risk management team, to be able to work together collaboratively better moving forward. I can't say enough good things about it. I'm recommending it for our entire risk team. I think it's a very cost-effective way of educating people where the intersection of risk management and water come together. I don't think anybody who takes this class in designation will leave not learning something new. So I can't say enough good things about it.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you very much. Vadim, what was your perspective?
Yeah, so I'll echo what Stacy said, and I'll just say I've been in risk management for a little while, and this program really, it builds the foundation that you need. And not only that, but in my case, it filled in some cracks in the foundation that I didn't even know were there. Going through the course, there were more than a handful of times when I was reading the text or listening to the other people in the cohort or watching the vignettes from people with real life experience, and I was thinking, oh, that's a good point. Oh, why don't I do things like that? So even for someone who's been exposed to risk for a while, there's a whole lot to learn, or just to align yourself with best practices. I kind of like to say it kind of gets everybody that goes through this pulling on the same rope, and just being able to do that really as a profession increases our ability to do our jobs.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, and it was such a pleasure to walk through the course together, because everyone is at a different stage in their professional journey. And there's not a cookie cutter way to develop risk management acumen. Each person had a different lived experience. And the intention here isn't to replace those lived experiences. It's really to provide, as Vadim said, that shared language of how to talk about risk, and especially how to talk about risk to your other teams, to your board, and to your executive management and stakeholders. I noticed that Benson Hua had just joined, but Benson, I'm not going to put you on the spot. I just do want to call out that Benson is on the board of the Certified Public Risk Officer designation, and we're really happy to have him along with Vadim and others. So I know we have a couple of questions in the chat. Perhaps I'll turn this over back to you, Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. So Chris and I will pivot to the question and answer session. Looks like Sunny, you've got a question here. Chris, I'll go ahead and ask the question. I think, Carrie, this would be best directed at you, along with Laura Lee. The question is this certification similar to ARMP, Associate in Risk Management Public Entity? Laura Lee, that might be one for you. And then, Carrie, Sunny's also asking, may we get the course literature for my supervisor to review to get an approval to enroll to this training? So, Laura Lee, if you could speak to the ARMP similarity.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for the question. So it is similar in the sense that it is a risk management credential and it is for public entities, but there are some notable differences. And I think the reason that we created CPRO is because there was a hole in the knowledge base that's available for people to use to improve their acumen in the water wastewater area, but also in enterprise risk management. So the ARMP is still somewhat traditionally risk management oriented. It does not take the strategic enterprise risk management view that we do within the CPRO. So that's a substantial difference. And I think if you see the promotional materials, and certainly when you're in the course, if you see the full materials, you will see immediately that there is a divergence in what the overall focus and thrust of the program is. And so while the ARMP is designed for public entity, public sector risk management, it is not specifically for water, wastewater. It doesn't speak to those to any level of depth. And the CPRO-W² also does that. So CPRO-W² is very different, and I think different in an invaluable way on at least both of those fronts, that it is extremely enterprise risk management oriented, meaning there's a top-down approach that is aligning strategic values of the organization with risk view and risk management decision-making, and that it is focused entirely on water, wastewater sector.
Thank you, Lori. Yeah, and I would build on that in that ARMP, RIMS, the institutes, they have excellent programs, but they have to provide education that spans the private sector, the public sector, the nonprofit sector, any type of industry where the CPRO-W² is focused specifically on water and wastewater utilities. So every tool, every challenge is all taught in the context of what a water utility faces day to day and what their unique options are. That's a lot of what Vlad covered today. Something
Yeah,
that you're
if
probably
I
going to
can,
find in ARMP.
yeah, I can jump in and add to that too. It's just like this group, water leadership group. It's specifically for water and wastewater because we felt that that need was not being addressed by Parma and Prima and RIMS because no one else was talking about specifically the problems we're dealing with and the challenges that we're having. Similarly, CPRO-W is a fine tool for specifically water and wastewater that was created for that purpose alone.
Thanks, Vlad.
And I think Stacy wanted to add something too.
Yes, I wanted to mention I received the CP. Gosh, I can't speak here. I've received my ARM as well. What's different about this program is it's very water centric. So even though that's speaking to public entities, the education that you get from going through this program and the amount of detail, there's a specific book that you work out of that really becomes almost like a Bible that you can keep at the side of your desk to reference from time to time. It's a lot more in depth in terms of the type of equipment that we use, the different divisions or departments that we work with in our different organizations, and how to kind of understand how we can work together through risk. So I think it's actually a very different focus than what you're going to get at the institutes.
Thanks, Stacy.
I think
Sunny, you
Sunny,
have your hand up?
yeah.
I'm sorry, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you now.
Okay, sorry. Thank you for the clarification. It's just that this is the first time seeing this certification. We usually see ARMP or Enterprise E for private sector. So is this recognized as same? Because, when you look, usually they look at ARMs more than, so this is my first time seeing this certification. So I didn't know this is well recognized as ARM. Over.
Thank you. Laura, did you want to take that question? I'm happy to.
Yeah, sure. Sunny, this is a brand new designation, so it is being promoted in front of leaders in the sector. So the water, wastewater sector is becoming familiar with it, but it is brand new. We launched it in the fall. So it does not have the same base of familiarity as the programs that the Institute has created and been running for 50 years, right? So it doesn't have that level of familiarity with most people, but we have utilized an incredible advisory board and an incredible set of stakeholders to create a program that is intended to quickly become very well known in the sector and with stakeholders that serve the sector. So for instance, it's being promoted in the insurance and reinsurance space where the sector is concerned, and it's being promoted in the debt analyst space and in the investment banking space where this sector is concerned, so that the familiarity with the parties that we need support from are becoming quickly familiar with it, and we are getting their input so that it does carry heavy weight with those groups.
Thanks, Lori.
Got it. Thank you.
Listen, thank you, Sunny. And I'll answer your second question in just a second. I want to turn it over to Benson, who's just come on camera. Hey, Benson.
Yeah, I think I have the ARM as well, and I think the main difference is that part of these other designations are more academic and theoretical as well. The CPRO is more practical, right? There's real life experience of folks who kind of lived as risk managers in this field and have basically, scenarios that they've lived through and experiences they've lived through that kind of shows itself in the material itself. So if you're in this industry and you want something that, hey, look, I'm not looking for a theoretical answer. I'm looking for a more practical, real life answer. I think, this is something that you want to look into just because it's a lived through experienced type of material that has been produced.
Oh, thank you, Benson. Before I'll answer your second question, Sunny, I'll just turn it back over to Paul Fuller.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. I just wanted to add this process, the journey of building CPRO. It's 5+ years. We received a grant of almost $1 million from a public charity to work specifically with Appalachian State University and to bring in these professionals within the water sector, but also key stakeholders like Laura Lee had mentioned, and certainly bringing in Carrie to lead the charge. ARMP, outstanding designation, well respected. CPRO, very specific to water, wastewater, and to my knowledge, the only university-administered designation for risk management within the water and wastewater space. So, Carrie, thank you. I wanted to clarify that.
I appreciate that, Paul. And Sunny, I see your mention in the chat. I did drop information on the CPRO-W² designation, and I'm also happy to share a little bit more about the upcoming cohorts. I'm just going to share my screen for just another brief moment. In terms of enrollment, I mentioned that it's a cohort style, and that creates a very rich and unique experience. Cohorts are limited to 12 individuals. We're actually working through the executive cohort right now. In June, we'll be offering a California specific cohort. It's a regional style, knowing that California utilities, they face some unique challenges, a unique regulatory environment, and we want to be able to talk about some of those lived and unique challenges in that peer-to-peer setting. And in the fall, we're going to be offering a risk manager cohort. That does not mean that you have to carry the designation of risk manager, but we really want to focus on folks that are either appointed risk managers, current risk managers, or aspiring risk managers. I can share that 3 folks in that cohort are human resources directors that are now wearing the risk manager hat. And that's not uncommon with water utilities today. So we want to equip them with the skills and tools to be successful. So you can see there's a QR code if you'd like more information. Stacy, that'll go into an interest form. Excuse me, Sunny. I would love to share a little bit more about how to talk about reimbursement, how to share this information with your supervisor. We've had really just unanimous excitement in rolling this out in 2026. So without any other questions, I'll turn it back over to Paul in case we have additional questions that aren't in the chat.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. We've got about 5-6 minutes left. Chris, we received some emails. Looks like the 2 of us did offline. Could you repeat 1 or 2 of those questions and direct it to the appropriate speaker?
Yeah, absolutely. First question is for Stacy or Vadim. Do you feel like it's realistic for a newer risk management professional to complete the course in 50 hours?
Yeah, I would say, this is Vadim from the San Diego County Water Authority. I would say that, yeah, if you could just dedicate just a couple hours a week as a newer risk manager, it's a good pacing to be able to accomplish your goals just based on spending a couple hours a week. So I would say that the 50 hours is realistic.
I'll chime in too. What you'll find going through the material is you're probably very comfortable with some of it, and more on the expert level, and other material you'll want to spend a little more time with and getting into the details because you're finding that that's a gap in your knowledge. So some of the material might take a little bit longer, but overall, the program 50 hours is very manageable.
Thank you, Stacy. Vladimir, will the Water Leadership Group serve as a platform for designees to communicate, network, and continue their professional development?
Yes, that's definitely something that we have discussed and agreed. So all the graduates of the CPRO-W will automatically be added to the Water Leadership Group so they can continue their professional development by attending our webinars and open forum sessions to discuss what they're dealing with in their day-to-day jobs and how we can deal with it collectively. So we will definitely include them into our and welcome them into our community.
Thank you. Next question is for Carrie. Would you recommend the executive or the professional cohort for an individual who is charged with implementing an enterprise risk management program and who has reporting oversight of the risk management department?
Good question. I would recommend the professional track because an individual that is tasked with supervising risk managers or a risk management team, their mark of success is really understanding what good looks like and providing the tools and resources to their team to be successful. You have to know what those tools do, and also I would say that Stacy's point, there's just naturally gaps in our professional careers where we wish we could have leaned in a little bit more, and we feel like we're a little shaky on some aspects. That's everyone in their profession. The nice thing about this course is it gives you permission to learn some of the basics that you may not have been able to pick up on in your lived experience, but now you understand them. You've got those tools, you know how to use them very well. For the executive cohort and the executive track, those are really folks that are going to be setting the vision for what enterprise-wide risk management should look like, and really playing that advocate role in clearing hurdles, resourcing their risk manager or risk management team, and interacting with the board and the C-suite of the utility. If that's your role, then yeah, the executive track is appropriate. But to the question that you were asking, Chris, leading a risk management team or stepping into a high level or mid-level risk manager role, I highly recommend you take the professional track.
Thank you.
Vadim, did you want to finish up with a comment, and then I'll go ahead and adjourn the webinar?
Yeah, I just wanted to add an extra thought. Carrie pointed out, this can expose some cracks. One of the things that really got me thinking about was if I don't have the knowledge who in my organization, and this speaks to this being specific to water and wastewater, who would I ask those questions? Which is not something that just you get exposed to and risk elsewhere.
Yeah, good point, Vadim. Well, everyone, we're at the end of our 60 minutes. A sincere thank you for spending time with us. If there's any additional questions or if you'd like additional information on CPRO, feel free to reach out to Vlad, Laura Lee, Carrie, myself, or Benson, who's also on the advisory board. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your commitment to the Water Leadership Group. And this will officially adjourn our webinar for today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.